In this lesson, we will address a very sensitive issue in the global agenda for gender equality, female genital mutilation. First, we will characterize the different modalities of this practice. Second, we will examine its geographical prevalence. Thirdly, we shall review the main reasons in favor and against it. Finally, we will mention the question of the eradication of this practice. The World Health Organization, WHO, defined female genital mutilation, or FGM, as all procedures involving partial or total removal of the external female genitalia or other injury to the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. This practice is imposed usually by family members on girls as a kind of rite of passage, lacking which women will not find a husband. WHO has identified 4 types of female genital mutilation. Type 1, it is the partial or total removal of the clitoris and or the prepuce, also known as clitoridectomy. Type 2 is the partial or total removal of the clitoris and the labia minora, with or without excision or removal of the labia majora, also referred to as excision. Type 3, it is the narrowing of the vaginal orifice with creation of a covering seal by cutting and appositioning the labia minora and or the labia majora, with or without excision of the clitoris, and leaving a small cavity for urination and menstrual discharge, also known as infibulation or pharaonic circumcision. In certain cases, the future husband will open the female genitalia. Type 4 refers to all other harmful procedures to the female genitalia for non-medical purposes, including pricking, piercing, incising, scraping, and cauterization. In 2008, WHO informed that female genital mutilation was an ongoing practice in at least 35 countries, 28 of them African, mainly Burkina Faso, Djibouti, Egypt, Guinea, Mali, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and Sudan, and 7 Asian. Due to migration, the practice has also been documented in Europe, America, and Oceania. In 2010, WHO denounced that more than 90 million girls and women over 10 years old had undergone this practice, with 3 million girls at risk of undergoing the procedure each year. Female genital mutilation is an expression that takes a critical stand, emphasizing the gravity of the practice. Several anthropologists prefer more neutral expressions instead, such as female circumcision or female genital cutting. UNICEF embraces both positions, referring to it as female genital mutilation/cutting. Those who do not oppose this practice and even argue against its prohibition draw on cultural relativity claims in order to hold every way of life as equally valuable. Some point out that the human body is a sort of canvas over which cultural identity manifests itself, for instance through hairstyles, shaving or lack thereof, tattooing, or piercing. On this account, the cutting or removal of some parts of the female genitalia would be but another kind of cultural bodily expression, thereby Whenever international organizations try to forbid these practices, some think they are performing a sort of feminist neocolonialism. On the other hand, there are strong reasons for condemning this practice and to uphold the name female genital mutilation in order to raise awareness on its gravity. First, unlike male circumcision, there are no known medical benefits to be obtained from female genital mutilation. Quite the contrary, the WHO has identified the following risks to health provoked by this practice: severe pain, shock and psychological trauma, excessive bleeding, difficulty in passing urine, infections, HIV transmission, unintended labia fusion, excess of scar tissue, diminution of the quality of sexual life, birth complications due to high postpartum bleeding, and even death. Number two, regarding medical ethics, the WHO has called for the banning of the medicalization of this practice, that is, the performance of mutilation procedures under color of sanitized medical conditions. It must be remembered that the Hippocratic Oath forbids physicians to harm people. Number three, concerning human rights, in 1990, the CEDAW Committee issued its General Recommendation number 14, after noting with grave concern that there are continuing cultural, traditional, and economic pressures which help to perpetuate harmful practices such as female circumcision. It recommends states to take appropriate and effective measures to eradicate this practice. Furthermore, in 2008, the UN Commission on the Status of Women issued a declaration emphasizing that female genital mutilation violates and impairs or nullifies the enjoyment of the human rights of women and girls. As for the particular human rights violated by this practice, WHO has pointed out the rights to life, to the highest attainable standard of health, to freedom from torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, the rights of the child, and the right to equality and non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Regarding discrimination, it may be said that female genital mutilation deploys an evident fear of the full enjoyment of sexuality by women, whereas male sexuality remains unfettered. In fact, one of the reasons given to justify this practice is to guarantee the sexual fidelity by married women. Number four, regarding the cultural relativity claim, more than 20 African states have passed laws prohibiting the practice. Furthermore, the African Union has approved a protocol on the rights of women in 2003, a solemn declaration on gender equality in Africa in 2004, and a call for Africa free of female genital mutilation in 2007. In order to preserve cultural identity, alternative rituals of passage, such as circumcision through words, have been put into practice in some places. It is worth noting that according to UNESCO's Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity, no one may invoke cultural diversity to infringe upon human rights guaranteed by international law, as the defense of cultural diversity is an ethical imperative inseparable from respect for human dignity. Dignity is the ultimate value underpinning the human rights system. Now, if by dignity we mean the Kantian notion of autonomy, then it might appear that a woman voluntarily undergoing female genital mutilation will not be infringing it. However, girls suffering this procedure are not autonomous yet, as it is precisely through it that they are supposed to attain maturity in their cultures, and the decision is actually made by their families. But even for mature women, international case law shows that dignity can be said to be an indisposable value, which would be infringed whenever a degrading treatment takes place. For instance, through gross humiliations deleterious to bodily integrity, painful or not, such as forced shaving, forced nudity, and genital mutilation. Since the 1990s, international organizations such as the WHO and UNICEF have issued statements against female genital mutilation. Also, in 1996, the United States conferred refugee status to a woman who had a well-founded fear to be subjected to genital mutilation in Togo. At any rate, the eradication of FGM is a long-term task, as it is performed in the realm of family or tribal life, and direct action against it, instead of painstaking promotion, may drive it underground, where it would be performed in even worse conditions. In fact, many African states have made efforts towards raising awareness among their local population on the dangers surrounding this practice. Many NGOs also work for the elimination of female genital mutilation, such as the Donors Working Group on FGM/C and the Global Alliance Against Female Genital Mutilation. Thank you for watching this class. Please visit www.mokshide.com and we invite you to watch our next lesson.